Monrovia, the capital of Liberia. It's a country that a decade ago was racked by civil war, but where the economy is booming. GDP grew more than 10% in 2012. Liberia came in 83rd out of 177 countries in Transparency International's 2013 Corruption Perceptions Index. That's good compared to much of Africa, but some analysts say corruption is still holding the country back.
When the traffic finally moved forward, OPA drove right to the police officer at the junction.
Robtel Paley is a Liberian national and scholar at London University's School of Oriental and African Studies. She wrote a children's book about corruption and says younger generations must be made aware.
In the private sector, it happens in the markets, it happens in the schools, it happens in governments. So I would argue certainly that it's entrenched, and I think this is a common phenomenon that people will accept as being entrenched. So it's an open secret that corruption is entrenched in Liberia.
Paley says cutting corruption requires a change in mindset.
I think in many ways, Liberians think of corruption as about a way to get ahead of the system, a way to bypass the system. But you'll find that people are talking about the issue of corruption now more than ever before.
Somalia came in at the bottom of the index among countries that are the most corrupt. On Monday, lawmakers in the capital, Mogadishu, voted to oust the government after a power struggle over allegations of favouritism and clan politics. Countries suffering from conflict are the worst performers, says Robert Barrington, Executive Director of Transparency International.
You find a closing down of the transparency in government, and in particular you find a complete lack of accountability. The institutions of the state start to dissolve, and it's the citizens that suffer.
Syria, with a protracted civil war, has slipped further down the corruption index. It now lies 10th from the bottom. Iraq, currently witnessing a surge in violence, is also among the bottom 10, as is Afghanistan. Ukraine ranks 144th, one of the worst in its region, which included Europe, Russia and most of the former Soviet states. Again, Robert Barrington.
In most countries, you would hope that when you go to the police, they're your allies in the fight against crime. But in many countries, you actually find they're your enemies in the fight against crime. They are themselves the criminals.
But there are positive stories too.
Rwanda, a particularly interesting one, because it did perform quite poorly for a number of years, but there's been a concerted government effort to tackle corruption, and that's now reaping rewards.
The best performers in the index were New Zealand and Denmark, with Scandinavian countries consistently among the least corrupt. The United States came in 19th. Henry Ridgwell for VOA News, London.